And we are live. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for watching. I'm Devin, and I'm welcoming my great friend, Eric Rude. Thank you very much for joining me today, man. I appreciate you.
Absolutely, man.
And we were just talking about how life is changing given the viral pandemic. And dude, I have just literally yesterday come to the realization of how little I've been affected, like psychologically, from what's been going on, because I've just been doing what I've been doing normally. But yesterday I was getting like kind of panic attacky when I was like going to bed, and I had to go and put my head in cold water. And I was okay after that, but I was telling my wife, like, it's just kind of hitting me how this situation is affecting everybody. Like
around the planet, bro, not just America. It's nothing has affected the planet in this way for a long time, and it seems like it's comparable to like global warming almost, you know. So it's like the only other thing that really is affecting every human being on Earth in some way, or will at least very soon, you know.
Right. Yeah. It's a fucking alien invasion, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, and I also can relate to the stages of denial and grief, grieving your old life, grieving the old way of shaking hands and hugging people when you say hello. And just the carefree life that is now gone for like a while, you know. So there's a loss there that it needs to be grieved. And if you're like me, you will lie to yourself and put it off and say it's no big deal and go keep myself busy with adventure and projects to keep my mind off it until at some point it's going to hit you. So yeah, for sure, man. It's been a process of trying to figure out what it all means. And I also am with you on the fact that it was pretty easy for me to do that because of a lot of reasons. I have two kids, toddlers, twins that are 2-year-olds, keep me very busy, and I don't have time to think about much. And also we keep the screens to a minimum, so like when they're awake, there's no news on or anything, to bombard me with stress.
Right.
And the biggest one, and I think that you can relate to, is the fact that I love to be out in the wilderness where there's no threat of coronavirus anyways, by myself, so I can social distance and basically just keep on doing what I was doing anyways. Out of a lack of kind of being new to the area still, and like not having a ton of friends that want to go climb mountains in a blizzard. So
you got one
by myself for a long time, so I just keep on going, man.
Yeah, I feel you. What do you make of it in the abstract? Like in the same vein of you being able to insulate yourself from the effects and ramifications of it. And I've have been able to do that as well. We don't watch TV, I've got a real grounding relationship that keeps me sane, thank God. And we focus on just kind of pedestrian shit, just making sure we're, making income and getting food on the table.
I feel for those people who are quarantined alone right now and truly are just spending day after day in solitude, I mean, if you're in your like early 20s, single, you were studying and now you're back home or whatever, maybe with your parents and your parents suck. Can you imagine, so many people in various situations, not to mention all of my students, who are between 14 and 18, all stuck home with their parents at a time when their friends are everything, dude. You know what I mean? Can you imagine if this happened to us in like 2004?
Yeah, I hear you. Lord knows I probably would have lost my mind. Yeah, my heart goes out to everybody that is not in a real stable place in their own evolution as a person, and then this hits them. Yeah, I haven't really thought about all of the different.
That's just on a emotional and a mental level. We're not even talking about paying rent, losing your job, that kind of stress. We're just talking about being alone and how that sucks. Like there's all the other like real consequences.
Right, and just who the person is forced to interact with, forced to be under the thumb of, like, yeah, I mean, I get it, man. For that age of people that is finding themselves through their peer group to just have that cut off, yeah, it's tough.
Or a budding relationship, something like that. I have a lot of assignments getting turned in via video. I just have students just like record themselves speaking Spanish, and I can see where they're at and what they're talking about. A lot of my questions are like, who do you want to see and everything, and
Who do you want? What do you mean? Who do you want to see?
who do you miss? You know what I mean?
Oh, I see. You're asking them questions that are relevant, like to the here and now, like.
Always, bro.
Yeah, I like that. I like your angle on teaching the subject that you teach, in that you're not talking about just disparate theory shit. You're like using the skill to like deal with something that's present. That's powerful.
It's always about your surroundings with language, because that's what you interact with and talk about, especially when you're traveling. So yeah, man. It's always about their lives and the movies and video games and music and celebrities and prom coming up, or maybe it's past tense and what happened at prom. You know what I'm saying? So,
sure. No, I get you. Whether or not prom is held, it seems like it wouldn't be held this year, but that's beside the point. This is my take on kind of what I think is happening de facto in all of our response to this tragedy, right? I mean, this crisis, whatever you want to call a viral epidemic. This is a thing that I'm trying to get my head around. We're all going deeper into the digital.
oh my gosh, yeah, man. I used to go to work every day and talk to hundreds of people, and now I connect with like 25 of them, and all the assignments are like this, or yeah, this is accelerating the humid to Android process.
Right. And I'm telling you, I think that's a big part of this story. I really do. I think that we're in it, so I don't have a great deal of perspective yet, right? I don't see it from every angle. I don't see it from 30,000 feet. I'm in it, so I don't have all of the insight that I might in 10 years about, the viral pandemic of 2020. But right now, it seems like the real movement, like the actual change, the delta that has happened, is that we've all gone from a very organic life to a more interconnected digital life. And
imagine if you're like 8 or 9 or 10 years old right now, and you're just forming what your life is to be. You're not changing it from what it used to be. You're making it the future.
That's a good point. That's a good point. It's like an initiation, and it's happening for everybody now in the here and now, but everybody's at different stages of life. I hear you.
Yeah. The effect that it has on them is going to shape how they are in their teens, and then later on, so that'll
right.
continue to have ripples throughout the future.
I'm not given to conspiracy theory. Let's just start there. But this is a weird thing in that this is a great reorganization of global, I hesitate to say infrastructure, right? Because we're not changing the roads and the shipping, routes or anything like that. But it's like all right, let's come online time. And it's been my experience that I think we're all kind of ready for it. Like, we're all kind of,
Depending on your age.
yeah, I mean, I guess I can only speak for myself, right? Like, I've been dabbling with YouTube. I've been consuming a lot of podcasts and
Well, let's
trying
take
to.
my 70-year-old mother, for example, who lives alone, doesn't have a partner or anything. She does online painting and art classes, online Spanish classes. Not to mention, she gets sent video text messages from all 3 of her kids and grandchildren. And we communicate via FaceTime exclusively, and will continue to do so for probably the next 6 months at least.
Right.
So, yeah, that's happening to young people and all the way up to people my mom's age who don't have a choice but to live in complete solitude or move to the digital age.
It's an interesting.
Are
I'm sorry.
Are your parents techie like that?
You know, my mom and stepdad, Jim, and my mom, Rory, who you know, are not very tech savvy at all.
Your mom's on Instagram. She likes all my pictures.
She's on Instagram. She's kind of on Facebook. Yeah, my dad even less so. Dude, my dad does not own a cell phone.
No way.
Swear to God. He, I think, is getting his wife. She's going to give him her old one, but he's been that kind of guy who
He like doesn't have friends, doesn't want to communicate with anyone whatsoever.
I mean, he has buddies, like,
Yeah.
you know, but they're family, you know, like his tightest friend he is the godfather of that gentleman's daughter. And he's known that man, Bill Burns is his name, before I was born. So like my dad doesn't like socialize with like people he doesn't know. He's locked in, you know? He's one of the people that's not going to be affected by like a social change or a social revolution. He's in his routine. You know? God bless him. He's worked his whole life. You know, he's bought his house. Like he's set, you know? But yeah, he's not super deep into the kind of new wave, if you will. And I am. I'm starting to. I'm sorry.
He won't be able to really experience time with his grandchildren for a little while, unless he gets, catches up with the class a little bit, right?
That's a really, really good point. I don't know how serious my brother and nephew and sister-in-law are taking the quarantine. I just don't know. I haven't really spoken to them in depth. They're in San Jose, and my dad's in South San Jose. Yeah. So I don't know how much they're getting together, given that it's not really advisable now, you know? Yeah, you have an interesting way of putting things, man, where you are able to, if you don't mind me saying, see things through other people's perspective. I think you're a real emotionally intelligent individual. I think I've always known that. And it makes it fun to communicate with you, because where I'm often so blinded by being so deeply entrenched in my own perspective, my own thinking through a certain complex situation, you're almost instantly able to see that same thing through multiple people's perspective. I think that's a real skill. And my hat's off to you. I would like to develop that skill more so for me. I think a lot of the difficulty that I have with that is my defensiveness. I think when I try to do that, I often get a kind of psychological trip up where I feel like I'm not protecting myself. And I think that is something that I can stand to learn from you. The ability to not focus on myself in a situation that affects everybody.
Yeah. I don't know. People have told me that before, I guess, about empathy. I don't know where that comes from.
You're a middle child.
Yeah,
I think that probably has something to do with it.
It's like kind of like was just an observer growing up, you know, as a middle child. Like I don't know what's happening. I have to look to someone else to show me what's going on, aka my older brother, you know, who's 2 years older. Um, so yeah, that affects you heavily, being making me more of like a follower. I never wanted to be like in a group, the leader of that group. I just wanted to be like a participant kind of. Um, I've never really liked any kind of leadership roles. And in high school, I would definitely like gravitate towards people that were like type A kind of people because I'm not a type A person. So it was really easy for me to just hop behind them and go along for the ride because it was easier that way. And that's just how I grew up, you know,
I
with
hear.
older brothers.
Well, I think that to your credit, man, to your credit, Eric, you have used that positively, right? You've been able to find a way, and I mean, take my opinion with a grain of salt, but you know I love you. I'm shooting you straight. I think that you have integrated that effectively. I have a different bend, right? I grew up with a brother 6 years older than me,
Yeah.
who it was like fight or die. Like I had to be ready to fucking throw down at a moment's notice because he could always take me physically. So I either had to be able to defend myself verbally, or I had to be able to just like, go till the bitter end to just, protect myself. And so I'm a hyper defensive personality type, and that is something that I've had difficulty dealing with. And for me, the best way that I've found to keep that negative impulse in check is exercise, discipline, like being the voice of kind of knocking myself down in a positive way, such that I can build myself back up, like understanding that like the hits that are going to come are going to be good and that I can welcome them because I'm strong enough and I don't have to be defensive. Like working through that has been a long process for me. And it's still who I am to a deep degree, to the degree that we're shaped by our childhood. And the other thing that I think has been a real unifying part of our friendship, a real commonality that we've been able to celebrate in our friendship, is being in the outdoors, being in not survival situations, but situations that dictate that what's happening outside is more important than what's happening inside, what's happening like.
We both have had, our parents got divorced and some like kind of things we had to get over as kids. And then later in life, we had to get over some substance abuse problems that were both like took work to get over and self-improve,
That's fair.
that's not something that I have in common with very many people or can really talk about. I'm not sure if I want to right now.
You don't have to.
I just want to point out that we do have that in common as well, just call it whatever you want. Perseverance, recovery, struggle, being on the same bumpy road,
I think there's a great deal of heroism and virtue and value as a human that comes from facing one's own wickedness and propensity to perpetrate evil and doing so in a way that is a process. Like, it's easy to say, I fucked up, forgive me. It's a lot more difficult to examine one's own behavior and try to implement better habits, better processes, better systems of behavior. And yeah, man, I'm not going to speak for you, but I've certainly done that. And the reason why I have the ability to tell my story without defensiveness or worry or insecurity or anxiety is because I've watched friends of mine pass away from losing that journey.
Yeah.
And we're only like early 30s. And, our generation hasn't had a world war. or any great threat to life the way that other generations have. But depression and drug abuse and suicide
Yeah.
has been probably the greatest, reaper of young lives that I've seen in my peer group.
Yeah,
And
before the pandemic, mental health was at the forefront of discussion on like what's wrong with society or what is society doing to people.
yeah,
And
man. And I am just crazy enough to think that I have a counter argument to the nihilistic hopelessness that, based upon cynicism that I hear from the people that are in that real dark place. And it's only because I've been there. And the reason why I'm passionate about these kinds of things is I think that there is a way out. I think that there is a way forward. I think that there is a way to build a good life. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You've done so, and you continue to do so. And you're a strength in my life, oh man. But I'm just saying that I would like to continue to speak to these things as abstract, as kind of woo-woo as they may be received. If you can talk one young person away from, doing some terrible drug, or from, treating their close family and friends with disdain or with malevolence because they've been hurt in the past, right? Or if you can offer them the perspective that everybody suffers, we've all been there. We've all been there. No matter how stoic or studly or, how well put together that other person seems, everybody's been there. So to be able to
and if they haven't yet, they are now.
yeah, right. Everybody will go to a place that challenges their worldview and their opinions and beliefs about themselves and so forth. And I really do believe in my heart and soul that there's an other side to that. There's, you go through the dark place, but then you come out the other side as the person that you've built, and I'll tell you, kind of coming to that realization as like a late 20s, early 30s person, for me, instantly gave me a new perspective on all of my kind of elders, all of the people in my family that have already done it. You know what I mean? Like all the people that have worked really hard and gotten to where they are, faced all adversity. Like when I was a young person, I was so deluded that I thought that my pain was deeper than anybody else's, and that everybody that had gotten to a position of success where they didn't seemingly face the same kind of pain that I did had gotten there through hook or by crook. And man, once I kind of rebuilt myself, I realized everybody has to do this. So the better move is for me to just have a little bit of fucking compassion, because we can all speak to that journey for each other, right? We can all be lights for each other as they go through difficult times, of facing the unknown and existing in chaotic.
Yeah, I would say that most people and all of our friends who have gone through that went through it alone, because it's not cool or easy to call up a buddy or whatever and let them know what struggles you're going through,
I hear you.
I feel like I'm pretty fortunate because my brother is only 2 years older, and he's like the only person that like I really have had in the past that I would call up and like have you talk to about shit, but I feel like a lot of people don't. Even if they have like really close friends, they don't want to like taint their friendship by getting all emotional and like needy and shit, So
I hear you.
They just do the American thing, the manly thing, whatever you want to call it, and just fucking tough it out, drink it off, whatever,
Right, not face it, as if that's somehow more gallant, as if that's somehow of a higher order virtue to act like it's not there. Yeah, man, I don't think we have
out of lack of any other option but to drown it out and keep going, man, because that's what animals do, man. They just, it's fucking cold out. Doesn't matter, dude. You gotta keep moving and get that food. So
Right.
yeah,
Well, the thing that I think is different between the human animal and the primal, the pack animal like wolves or chimpanzees or something that you could point to that's evolutionarily tied to us, is that in a wolf pack or in a chimpanzee, you know, whatever you call them, group, right where you stand. Like, this is a theory, maybe this is dead wrong, but I think in a wolf pack, the relationships between the wolf pack is extremely well defined. And this is what I'm getting at. In human interaction, I think that we've kind of bought into bullshit, like money, like status, like material possessions. And I mean, I'm not, sitting on top of a mountain. I'm not living in an ashram, but I recognize that the more stuff I focus on, the less relationships I focus on. Like the more things that I focus on that are things, the less I'm focused on like interactions. And I think that focusing on interactions, focusing on one's own action, one's own path, one's own passion, like that's the antithesis to just taking in media and buying bullshit. Like, I think that like being physical, being active, and being focused on a goal of one's own, whether it's painting or, some mode of educating oneself, or a practice like teaching, like you teach, or, mountain biking, or what have you, whatever you're into, right? Like, I think the more that a person focuses on that, the more that a community happens organically. Like, you meet people on the trail, or,
yeah,
that one student that really needs your, your perspective, really
right.
gives you thanks. And that
I
means a
would
lot to you.
say that speaking towards like a goal, I don't have like necessarily like a goal of progression of getting better and better at kayaking until I'm going over waterfalls and shit. I just want to have a balanced life. I want to have enough time to work to make money, time for my family, and also time to get out and get in the river or go mountain biking or do whatever, you know? So I think that like in order to have that time, like I gotta have shit paid for, you know what I'm saying? Like I gotta have people taken care of and my house in order for me just to get like a couple hours of that. However, I'm able to do that, and I usually get out a few times a week, you know, for some adrenaline time, you know, whether that be on my skateboard, bike, or kayak, whatever, man. It's very therapeutic, and without that, without those little bits of adventure that sometimes only last an hour or two, I wouldn't have that balanced life that I strive to have. Um, but it takes a lot of fucking work just to keep my ducks in order, just to get those little bits of time. However, I really, really appreciate those little bits of time. You know what I mean? And if I didn't have my ducks in order and I did that all the time, that's all I did. You know, like it might not be as rewarding. You know, so there's something to be said about the balance that makes you enjoy all parts, if at a lower level, you know, the consistency of enjoyment over time. I enjoy the little bit of work that I do. I enjoy the little bit of time with family. I enjoy a little bit of time outside. So it's kind of just a little bit of everything and not all of like one thing. Um, because then you get burnt out off it, you know? Like if you go skiing every single day of the season, eventually you're sitting on the chairlift and you're bored because it's just monotony, you know?
Right.
So monotony is not good. Variety is good. And balance is what I strive for and what seems to make me happy. Um, if even if that happiness is at like a consistent B instead of these like high A's, you know.
Right.
So that's what middle-aged life is like, right? Just consistent B.
Hopefully we can keep a passing grade moving into the fucking midlife crisis. But yeah, I feel you. What gave you that perspective? When did you start approaching your days, your life with that wisdom? Because I think that that's wise, what you're saying.
I think like just over the last 2 years, having kids and having major life changes, and having to like cut out little pieces of my time when I was really tired and I felt like I didn't want to go out in the woods, just doing it anyways, because I knew the value of that to the balance. Because if I just stayed home and just like rested or watched TV during the kids' nap, they're gonna wake up and I'm just gonna be kind of like unrefreshed. So recently, is the answer to your question. I have not lived a life of balance for much of my life, so I'm only recently figuring this out.
I think that's awesome, man. I I think that we could all focus on our balance more so to our own benefit.
I have to say, every summer when I stop working for 3 months at a time, the balance is off,
Right.
and it's too much free time, and I don't enjoy um, my free time activities to the degree I do, I guess, like other times. Um, ski season always happens during the work year, during the school year. So, like, I love skiing all the much more because it's like Saturday when I work Monday through Friday.
Right.
But in the summertime, dude, like, I don't know what day it is, like within even 5 days of the date, and just like going from campground to campground, and um, I don't know. I feel like there's something to be said about like as human beings, and you're saying about like the wolf pack community, whatever. Like,
Right.
in order to like feel okay, like we have to like put in some like some service or work, even if it's just like mowing the lawn at your house or trimming the weeds. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what people are doing right now in the pandemic, stuck at home. Staying busy to feed that need that we all have, whether we like it or not, to be productive.
Right. Yeah, that's a real good point. That idle time, boredom, is a dangerous thing to give oneself.
I'm very jealous of you, by the way, for having that mountain literally outside your door to just immediately start
Yeah.
grinding.
Yeah, Pilot Butte. Pilot Butte's really a cool thing. We chose the apartment on the opposite side. So what I'm looking at out that way, like the lights coming in from the windows, is looking to the south, and Pilot Butte is to the north. So it's on the other side of the apartment complex. We were looking at either this one or one on the second floor that looked at Pilot Butte. So we get the morning sun, which is good because it gets me up and at them. But they get the sunset and the view of Pilot Butte. But yeah, it's so wonderful, man. They have a.
Something to be said about just having adventure nearby. And actually, I was watching one of your YouTube videos this morning about how nice it is not to live in a huge metropolis right now, and how the lockdown's kind of light, and there's not that many people anyways around here. So, like when I go out hiking or something, or even to the store, dude, like it's never crowded. You know what I mean?
Right.
No lines. Like I see people waiting in lines like hey, just to go to the grocery store that are a mile long. So there's so many benefits to living in a slightly smaller area, not just right now, but in general to have access to the outdoors quickly, because a lot of times, especially if you're like me, you don't have a lot of time, dude, and you're just trying to carve out little bits of happiness to create the balance. And it's just not possible, dude, unless you have wilderness nearby. If you're like you and me, and that's what you call happiness.
Yeah, I mean, I was faced with the realization for me personally years ago that money can't buy the beauty inherent in nature. And no building that I could build would stand up to, you know, the granite walls of El Capitan, and no virtual experience could touch the feeling of skiing powder, or surfing a wave. So I made that argument to myself years ago that I just want to have a life that gives me access to the experience of, Mother Earth, the the thing that we can forget about at our own peril that is always in control. Like, you forget that at your own peril, whether it's in Pompeii or, San Francisco in 89 or, Indonesia, years ago with the tsunami. Like, the earth is in charge. And I think as busybody, psychologically removed, business people, let's say, forget that. And we forget that at our own peril. We can create virtual lives around ourselves to spin the hamster wheel all we like. But at the end of the day, we're in this together on the same rock, hurtling through space. And so I realized that, I don't have to feel bad about how much money I'm making, a given year. I don't have to feel bad about, what job I take to make money to put food on the table. I don't need to judge myself based on things that we as a society have created. I can still connect with the thing that is superordinate to everything that is anthropogenic. Everything that's man-made is just on top of the earth. The earth is still the primary. And so for me, what helped me through difficult times and trying to figure out who I wanted to be and what direction I wanted to point myself was that simple realization that no matter how crazy I was at any given time, no matter what, logic chains were going through my head, right? No matter what kind of turbulence or emotional, feelings I had, I could go surf. I could go ski. I could go mountain bike. And instantly, all of that was synthetic. All of that was not real. What was real was the firing of my muscles, was the movement of my body, was feeling the wind and the tide and the current and the waves. And so I just bought that argument. I don't know if anybody that was watching buys that argument, but I do. And so it gave me peace of mind. It gave me the peace, man, the serenity that I don't need to go faster and faster and faster in the rat race to feel secure. I just need to be an okay person. I need to be moral. I need to have good relationships. I need to honor my relationships, right? And I need to, be of service and produce enough so that I'm justified in going and connecting, reconnecting, grounding, earthing, whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you need to make enough to be able to go do that, to have the experiences that we value so much. They're not free. They're not expensive, but they're not free.
Right. Because I knew that it was a thin line between me being able to speak on a stage or a soapbox. And I realized that the difference between those two things were getting my act together with respect to society and all of these things that the kind of like primal me thinks are synthetic and not real and based on, fallible humanity. And so, lend themselves to corruption and things. But at the very same time, I realized that people are capable of good, and not every institution is corrupted, and that people do strive for high ideals. And I can plug myself into society in such a way where I don't give up my integrity, where I tell my own truth, and I can work and I can be of service and I can create value economically. And I don't have to turn my back on all of these other things that I think are of a even more base order reality. So that's been a hard balance to strike for me, because I think it's easy to go to one side or the other. It's easy to be, a Wall Street gambler and have that be the whole world that a person is in, right? I don't know this, I don't do it, but I can imagine. And, dividends and have that be what a person focuses on. But I recognize it's easy to be on the other side and say, all that's nonsense and evil. And so I'm just going to, be a surf bum. And man, I don't think that either of those are sustainable. I think a person needs to learn how to be a good citizen and a good, person of service. I got to shave so I don't look like a fucking bum. But, I can clean up nice and I can go to work and make good money. But I'm never going to forget the things that have given me balance. And not balance in the way that you were talking about time management, but balance like emotional balance, psychological balance, right?
Yeah.
Like balance internally in my energy.
Well, that's the same thing. In my mind, it's kind of the same thing. It's like not necessarily balance of time, but balance of the various facets of your life, being work, family, recreation, friends. Um,
I hear you. Yeah, then we're on the same page, because I think that that's been, where the 20s were the like learning who I am, the 30s seem to be the like getting it right, like I gotta shave, like it or not, I gotta fucking shave, like I can be doing more professionally, I'm doing enough, but I
why
can do
then?
more.
You don't have to if you're supporting a lifestyle that is making you happy, and like you said, like also making your partner happy, so that you keep that whole part of your life in balance. Um, then you don't. There's not like you have to make a certain amount of money for it to be enough. It just has to be enough for what you're doing, and also like as a responsible person, like what you want to do in the future.
Right. You're reading my mind. That's really where the rubber hits the road for Isabella and I, because we're thinking about having kids here soon, and Papa's got to buy some shoes. So yeah, and I think that the pressure of that realization is a good one.
So let me tell you something about you're talking about the balance between surf bum and banker. Um, so basically, the balance, it comes back to the balance. Work is work, dude. It's going to suck. I've gone through years where I didn't really like teaching. I didn't think I had the right personality for it. It was horrific, and it was I've almost quit doing it, but I never did because I knew that wasn't really a viable option. I don't know like how like Tracy would have reacted. I got a mortgage and shit, and I just you know like I don't know. I feel like you have to figure out how. If it's really bad, you got to get out of your job, right? But there's other ways to figure out how to really enjoy your life, and maybe just not give a shit about work. Maybe focus your positivity on the positive facets of your life outside of the 30 or 40 hours, which really is not a ton of time. And make sure that you go mountain biking after work every day, or get in like the little bit of happiness that you need to keep charging on, I don't know, man. It's a hard thing that I struggle with because I know people that quit teaching and found other professions and they found happiness, um, and quit whatever job and redirected, And I really respect people that do that because they followed their heart and everything. Um, I didn't have the courage to do that, So it's something I definitely respect a lot. However, I also believe there's something to like just like I said, work is work, dude, and like you just got to get that shit done, and then you know, hopefully it's not like too antagonizing or too stressful. It doesn't need to be. There's certainly a lot of jobs out there that aren't, and it's just you gotta do it somehow. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I think that like too many people, especially in our generation, think that like they have to love their job, you know? And it's like uh, that's like I don't know. I think that's kind of like if you go around the globe, dude. And I've been to 36 countries in my life. That's just not a luxury that people around the world enjoy. So it's not realistic, I don't think. Um, and that you shouldn't find a job that you hate. Absolutely not. But to just keep on going for um, this like for me, dude, like I'd love to open a skate shop, you know what I mean? I'd love to just have that laid back vibe, got the skate videos playing, talking about product and shit. And I just knew that I couldn't handle the what comes with that, which is the financial stress of not making any money this month, and um, I didn't want to have that life, you know what I mean? I knew that like I just had to put in a little bit of time, dude, and I didn't think about money. I don't think about money. I don't even have the I could not sign into my online banking, and I haven't been able to do so for 6, 7 years, dude, because um, I don't live in a world where money is a thing because it's not what education operates off of. You know, at my level of teaching, it's just teacher and students. You know, um, so I have a unique perspective on that. I realize that, but at the same time, dude, like before teaching, I've worked a lot of shitty minimum wage jobs um, because I had rent to pay, dude, and I had to share that rent with Tracy. So if I didn't pay the rent, then she would have to pay it for me, and that would fuck our relationship up. You know what I mean? So it's like I hated this stuff, man. Um, I didn't deal with it the best way. I ended up having alcohol problems in my life and stuff like that from trying to deal with um, the work, man, putting in the work and not liking it, it sucks. But I feel like what I've learned from traveling the world is that everybody has to do this. It's a basic fact of life. And a lot of people choose not to get on board with that, and I think there's a price to pay for that, man. And
Sure
if you
there
want to
is.
keep on doing what you really truly love, you need a car with insurance and gas in the tank, dude, to get your ass up the mountain. Um, doesn't cost anything once you get there. But at the end of the day, you need a house to come home to after the mountain, food in the fridge, and if you ever want to have kids, man, you need 3 times that. So it's like um, there's some realities, you know what I mean, that too many people in our generation have put off, probably because we saw our parents work through jobs that they didn't really like, or like that ruined their life because they focused on it too much.
Yeah, I think that's something that I want to speak to. I left a pot on the stove real quick. Hold on. Fucking melting my pot. But I was gonna make oatmeal. But you just touched on something that I think is really, really an important part of my psychological development, and that is I watched my family who were really career minded and career focused. My dad was a physician for 40 years. My mom was a nurse. And we had money. We had a nice big house, pool in the backyard, nice cars. I worked at my dad's office when I was in high school and made 10 grand, and I had it in the bank, and I had no concept of money. So it didn't mean anything to me. But I kind of had a bad taste in my mouth about career-oriented people and the threat to relationships and the sanctity of the family unit that money and, you know, career focus can create. And that was something that fucked me up for a long time.
I think it's something that just needs to be got out of the way. You know what I mean? You need to like find your thing, and it's just something you don't have to worry about anymore. You know what I mean? But
Right.
it takes a shitload of work to get to the point that you don't have to worry about that anymore. And I'm not talking about money in general. I'm just talking about the constant income, however much that may be.
Right.
Once that's in place, dude, life's about all the good things. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't really think about money. You know?
I hear you. I think that the argument that I had to make to myself that gave me a little bit of a more nuanced perspective on just, frankly, money without just being hateful towards money, which is something that I was for my entire childhood, truth be told, because I equated money to what broke my parents up, which was a unfortunate conclusion for my young self to come to. But now, as an older person, what I can see that I think what people that think like I used to think don't see is that even though we can be consumed by all of the negative things that can be said about society, the injustice and the tyranny and the, you know, all the isms, right? Each of us is given so much value from the labor and the wonderful things of society that people have worked for, right? I mean, we take for granted the paved roads and the vehicles and the lights that are on and the plumbing and the laundry machines and, you know, the infrastructure. It didn't just show up. It didn't grow like a plant does, right? Like people have had to make this for us. And I think it's only been after realizing how much I have to be grateful for that literally is of others' labor, like that came from other people just doing the work, that I realized that me putting in hours of myself is not some martyrdom to, you know, evil corporations. It's just me putting in my fair share for those that are going to come after me. And, you know, I had to come to that deeper understanding of labor as an existential good, because hopefully one's labor improves everybody else's life, right? However little, right?
You'll find that, especially in these times when everyone's stuck with nothing to do, that psychologically we need labor. We have to stay busy. As human beings, we can't just stay idle because there's nothing to do. We just won't do it. The brain just, it needs to keep processing. It needs to keep working with different things. And that's why we love projects so much, you know?
Right. Izzy's in there right now doing a project with, I don't know if it's crochet or needlework or knitting, but she does all of those and sewing, and she's making something right now. But yeah, I think that's, I think that we've touched on really important things, man. I think
on balance,
on you know, taking on the next challenge, moving forward, you know, and kind of living for others, right? Not focusing on the self so much, which is something that I struggle with so much.
You know what, though, dude? I am a teacher in a big school and live in a community of teachers that really, really focus on that, selflessly devoting their lives to others. And I think that that's great, but there's no way that you can really do that until you've got your own life figured out. And I'm nowhere near that point, however it may look. Just keeping the day-to-day of myself and everybody happy in my house, and keeping myself happy, which is a constant process. So just doing that is a lot, man.
Well, you know, more power to you, and you'll always have a friend in me, man. I'm here. I value you. I appreciate your perspective. I think that you help me when you share your perspective, because it gives me another vantage point on whatever we're talking about. So I appreciate you. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward towards the next time that we can, go and get after it. And, I think that we can all do a better job with what we are speaking to. And that's not to say how good a job we're doing. It's just there's always room for improvement. And that's encouraging. That's fuel, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we can keep creating. We can keep creating this kind of fuel by being honest with each other, by, connecting, digitally or otherwise, and, being good parts of the community, right? For our friends, for our family.
Absolutely, man. I think that that's all we can do, man. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to be out in the soup kitchens helping people, serving directly. You just need to be a good person, pay your taxes, and be nice to people that are around you while you work and do so. Like it's not you don't like feel bad that you're not doing this or that, because we're all just doing what we can, man, and all we can do is just be kind, and try and enjoy our time here while we have, man. We don't know how much time we do have left, and so I want to think, if I get the coronavirus next week, I want to look back at like the last month, recent time, and be like, hey, I had a good time. I enjoyed all the time I spent with my kids, and the kayaking and the mountain biking, and the time I spent with my family, whatever, dude. Like, just be like happy about how you're living your life. If it were to come to an end in the near future, you should be living your life a certain way that if you got that news, you'd be happy to know how you've spent the last few months.
Right. I've heard like plan like you're going to live forever, live like you're going to die tomorrow or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
Like still believe that there's a chance to do anything that you want to do, but get done what you can get done today. Right. And yeah, man, look, I want to thank you for taking the time. Go enjoy your family, man. Go. I don't want to keep you any longer than you have to. I really appreciate you taking this opportunity and making this podcast with me. I shouldn't even really call them podcasts because I haven't put them on the podcast network. I don't know how to do that, but I call them conversations. This was a good one. And I love you, man. I appreciate your friendship. I look up to you as a family man, and like I call you and Mike both double daddies because you got 2 kids. So, my hat's off to you, and keep doing what you're doing. More power to you. And let's talk soon, man. Let's do this again.
Absolutely, bro. Nice talking to you, man. Peace out.
Love you, man. Later.